watching in the battle, yeah. Say what you want about me, yeah, but I'm a living in the green world, and I need the air to breathe. Some will say you gotta get your kicks by removing love from a natural chip. But metal will rust and money will burn, yeah. And on the final page I ask, where you living in the green world? And did you give some in return?
Park has been around for almost 10 years, and we monitor all the activity that happens on Mount Hood, in particular what the Forest Service is doing with the National Forest. And Mount Hood is one of the most visited national forests and climbed peaks in the country, so there's a lot of activity out here, not to mention that the Forest Service also actively logs the forests out here. So most of what we do is doing forest watch and tracking the timber sales that happen. At the moment there's about 40 active timber sales that are all in different stages of the process. It takes about a year or two for the Forest Service really to get a project together. So sometimes it's actually a pretty long process. And to my knowledge there's about 6 of those timber sales that are actually being logged as we speak. Probably not on the weekend, but are being logged. And like last month, we did go out to a timber sale where they were actively clear cutting. It's a pretty drastic thing to see. I think people are fairly familiar with the fact that there's logging happening in Mount Hood, but one of the hardest sort of obstacles that BARC has always had is just the fact that a lot of people don't realize that logging happens out in the National Forest, and that the Forest Service makes money off of public lands. I'll get out the maps and whatnot when we get to our next stop, but and sort of show you what I mean by the National Forest and the public lands area. But for right now, I just kind of want to give people some perspective on what we're going to do today. About 2 years ago, the Forest Service got a mandate that they had to go through what they called the travel planning process. And that would be a revision or a revising of their current travel management plan. And so that management plan basically says how they build, maintain, and obliterate roads in the National Forest. And the last time it was revised was about 10 years ago. So it's operating on science that has been updated, and we know a lot more now. As well, a big change that's happened in Mount Hood National Forest is the fact that there's now things like that motorbike that went by, and ATVs. The Forest Service, and I'm going to refer to it as this for the rest of the day, calls that sort of phenomena the highway vehicles, and that sort of encompasses single track trails that are for motorcycles, as well as ATVs and sort of those quads, and then also four-wheel drive trucks. So anything that basically can go off-roading, that's what they call OHVs. And so that's had, in the last 5 years, an enormous increase of use in the national forests all over the country, and including in Mount Hood. Some areas are way more impacted than others. And a lot of the reason why it's so popular in Mount Hood is because we have a huge amount, this is so great, there's so much activity out here. We have a vast logging road system, and so it's really easy for OHVs to get out deep into the forest because our logging road system is just incredibly prolific. It's everywhere. We have over 4,000 miles of documented roads in Mount Hood, and that's not even counting the temporary roads and the undocumented roads that the Forest Service has built. So it could be bumping up more to like 5,000. And so BARC really saw this whole travel planning process as an opportunity to have some real change. We want to see most of those roads are old logging roads, and we want to see a lot of those roads be taken out. At the moment they're threatening watershed areas, which we'll kind of talk some more about at our next stop, and also they're not very safe. They're not maintained. A lot of them are more than 10 years old, and most of them weren't built for more than 5 years of use. 5 to 10 years of use. So they're starting to crumble away, and they're going to become we're basically sitting on the potential of a huge problem. So one of the reasons why I picked this area is because not only does BARC advocating for taking out a lot of these roads, we're also advocating for maintaining the roads that people are using. We've just standing here for a couple minutes seeing how many people passing by. This road is a very popular road for recreation, and at the moment we see a major problem. This whole bridge was blown out during a storm, and it's been out the entire summer. This is one of the most popular trails in Mount Hood, the trail into Ramona Falls, and we kept calling and asking when this bridge was going to be reopened, and they said all summer, they kept saying, oh, a couple weeks, and when Katie and I stopped in this week, they basically were like, oh, we don't even know anymore. So, I mean, they pretty much have their hands set. So one thing that BARC is trying to also point out is while they continue to build new roads and do a lot of timber sale planning with all of our tax dollars, they're not putting money into fixing roads like this that are really popular and people want to use to be able to get to these areas. And we'll talk some more about some of those issues as we go, but I wanted to make sure people kind of understood that this lack of dollars going into maintaining roads is very real. This is obviously a huge project, but it's just one bridge. It probably could get fixed, and it would serve a lot of people. One of the things I also want to point out as we're going up this road to come is, and actually a really great example of this sort of idea is Road 57, which leads to Timothy Lake, which is also an extremely popular recreation area. That road was out for about 3 years, and the Forest Service actually did a detour around 57 so people could still get to Timothy Lake. Well, the road that they detoured people on is an old logging road that we know is probably more than 10 years old and is starting to fall apart. So they basically had a huge traffic detour going on this pretty unsafe road. The road has now seen a lot more impact. You can start to see it sagging in some areas after 3 years of use, and it just was not built for that type of use. Now what we're going to do, they don't actually have a detour, but what we did is we kind of figured out another way to get on the trail that we want to get on. So we're going to drive on this logging road. When Katie and I were out here the other day, we almost got hit because there was another car coming down. The roads are not meant to have a lot of people on them, but like what we want to do, we want to go see this area, so we're going to find a way and we'll do it, and so will all these other people probably who are heading out and going to different areas in the forest. And so I think that that's a really important point, that as these roads continue to exist, people are going to continue to use them whether they should be or not. And it's important to be managing for all recreation, not just OHV use when you're talking about roads, because we're about to take 3 cars up onto a logging road that probably shouldn't have more than a few visitors, a week. So that said, we're going to drive pretty carefully and slowly, especially around the curves, just to make sure if anybody's coming down. And I'll drive first and keep the window down if I can hear anything. And it's not too much further up the road, and we're going to just go to an area where there's some water crossing under the road and take a look at that, and then hop on the trail and hike for a little while. So we are going to Ramona Falls. At the moment we're standing right here. This is, let's see, actually it's about right here where this bridge has gone out, and so we're going to continue to drive. Actually, I guess we're more like, yeah, here. So we're going to continue to drive up 1828 like that and go up like that until we get to this little area, and this is where we're going to jump on the trail and start taking this trail down to Ramona Falls. Does that make sense? A little bit. And so, for everybody to know, this is Mount Hood Wilderness, and down here is the Salmon Huckleberry Wilderness. That's a pretty popular wilderness area. This is Mount Hood. You can start to see on the map the glacier areas.
Powerful men seek to die, gather with their flitting smiles and make plans. At the breakfast propaganda eating table, they make plans on how to gather all their wealth. It's really oh so seductive, nothing else matters. I said nothing is left untouched these days. Powerful men see to that they get their way. They are poisoned by something artificial, so they seek to change all of us to be, to think, to shit like them. Nothing is left untouched these days.
So I'm going to just quickly, let's see, okay, about a year ago, Bark started thinking about how we could respond to this travel planning process that's coming up. And one of the things that Bark has done for years is successfully get citizens and people out to the forest and show people how to get involved by being basically the witnesses of the activities that happen out here. So when we bring people out to timber sales, a lot of the times we're the only ones that actually see that timber sale other than the people who are logging it. And that's a really powerful thing to bear witness to those areas. So we realized that if we're going to start to respond to some of the new ideas that the Forest Service is going to come up with in terms of managing the road system, that the best thing we could do is actually get out into the forest and see what the roads look like, because it was something we had never really stopped to think about much on our way to the timber sales. One of the things that I keep going back to in my mind is there's about 5,000 miles of streams and waterways in Mount Hood, and there's about, as I said before, 4,000 known and documented roads in Mount Hood, miles of roads. So there's a lot of places where those two things are going to intersect, and that's probably where we're going to see the most impact on the forest, is right where those waterways are trying to get through. Not to mention the fact that waterways are usually the culmination of a huge watershed underneath the soil that the rest of the road is at the moment probably blocking a lot of. And so you start to see these waterways become ever more important because they're actually funneling an entire hillside of water into one little area. So Katie's actually been working a lot on this, and we've been having volunteers go out and fill out these survey forms when they get to the roads, and every time that the road passes a stream like this, we have this, and this is what I've passed out on the back, this stream form. And so Katie's just going to go through this form so everybody can kind of start to think about that.
So yeah, we made these forms basically to check the quality of the passage of the stream and make sure that whatever is like going on is appropriate for the hydrology of the area, and a lot of times it's not. So it's good to know like where all that is happening and on what roads have like especially bad stream crossings and should probably be addressed by the Forest Service. So if you look at the form, the top is basically just saying what stream it is, which sometimes you don't know because you don't have a good enough map, what road it is going under. And the next question is what type of stream it is. And those three terms are, on the real survey form, there's actually like this thing on the back that has the definitions of what those things mean. But a perennial stream means that it is flowing at least 90% of the time during the year, which so this one is flowing right now. Since it's the middle of summer, we would assume it's a perennial stream. And then the other ones, the intermittent stream flows approximately 50% of the year during the wet season only, and then ephemeral is only during extreme storms. So you may come across all of these stream types, and sometimes it's hard to say if you're there during the wet season if it's going to be flowing in the summer, but it's kind of just like a judgment call. And then the next question is whether it's fish bearing or not, which can also be hard to tell, but usually by the size of the stream, it's like, oh, obviously there's not going to be any fish here, or yes, this stream could definitely support fish. And the stream crossings, there's a lot of different kinds, but in general, the Forest Service just puts culverts is like their main way. They don't do a ton of bridges. They don't do the bottomless arch culvert, which is like really the optimal thing they would do with a culvert, which is where it would just be like an arch, and then the water and like the stream bank is so like natural. But usually they just do these circular culverts, which usually end up having a lot of problems. So the next question is to check which of those things is going on. And then one of those terms is a ditch relief culvert. And that's basically where, when they're building a road, often they'll put an inboard ditch on the inside. So the hill's this way and then the road's right here, and they don't want the water flowing onto the road, so they make a ditch. And then where the ditch is draining, they need it to cross under the road. That's called a ditch relief culvert. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so next you get into starting to assess. You've decided that you have a circular culvert, and you're starting to assess whether it's doing its job well or not. First question is to measure the length, which you usually bring out a measuring tape and you kind of rough it out from like this side to where it comes out over there. Next question is to get the diameter and the slope, which is obviously going to be an estimate since we don't have like the tools to do that, but I would recommend if you have like a water bottle, like a half-empty Nalgene water bottle, you can lay it on the culvert and just kind of like assess if it's like, maybe it's too flat or maybe it's like really too steep. So I don't know exactly what they're supposed to be, but maybe like 5%-ish.
I can guess just from seeing a lot of these that this probably is not resembling the actual slope, the natural slope of this hillside.
I think a lot of times like they're really not able to do that, which reflects the fact that like putting a culvert in like on a stream that's flowing very steeply down a hill is like not appropriate thing to do. So it's obviously going to like significantly change the hydrology. The next question is the stream width at bank full stage. And I can pass around this. There's like this tiny diagram here, right here. But basically the culvert needs to be bigger. The diameter of the culvert needs to be larger than the stream width at its highest stage. So if you look at the stream and you measure like where the water level would be at its highest point, that is what we're asking to be measured. And so oftentimes, like most of the time, the culverts are too small. Like the stream is kind of being like channeled into a culvert that is too small. And then the next question is percentage of culvert that is embedded underground. And a lot of literature, like on the internet and stuff, suggests that they embed the culvert underneath and have like natural materials on the bottom, which require the culvert to be much larger than the ones they're using. But most of the time you'll see that it is just like the bare bottom of the culvert, and the water is running like very thinly on the bottom of it, and so the culvert's not big enough, it's not deep enough. They're not using natural materials, so it really is nothing like what the natural stream would be. So basically that question is asking, of the diameter of the culvert, how much of it is embedded underneath soil? So the next question is the diameter of the culvert greater than the stream width at bankful stage? And you check yes or no. Are there natural materials present on the culvert floor? Which we just talked about. And then, is the culvert aligned with the existing stream channel, or are there sharp turns into or out of the culvert? And this is a good example of that happening, where the stream is like coming down this way, and they're probably like diverting this stream to make it go into the culvert. And there's this turn happening like right before the culvert, which means when the water is really flowing, there's a lot of opportunity for erosion on that turn, which is obviously bad. But that sediment is just going to keep flowing down the stream. And then is the culvert slope equal to the natural slope of the stream, which we kind of talked about. And next, it starts asking to look at if there's certain problems. Is there pooling before or after the culvert? So oftentimes if the culvert is too low or not big enough, there'll just be like this huge pool of water that's forming because the water is not able to flow naturally into the culvert. And that causes the temperature of the water to rise, which is kind of detrimental for the fish. Erosion, a change in velocity. So sometimes the stream is like really, really going, and then the culvert's not placed right, and the water is forced to slow down. And sometimes the opposite can happen, where the culvert is like too steep, and it's just like a metal bottom, so the water really speeds up, which can cause a lot of erosion. And then sometimes you'll see a drop at the inlet, or mostly it's at the outlet. So the culvert is coming out on the other side, and there's like, I've seen like an 8-foot or 10-foot drop where the water is just like going to drop down, completely erode that bank, or maybe like create a massive pool, and it's no good. So it's just asking all these questions so that we can assess whether it's good culvert or not, and if the Forest Service needs to address that culvert. It asks about the material of the fill, and then it asks about the diversion potential, which means that if this culvert is to fail, what is going to happen to the water? Is it going to wash up onto the road? So by checking yes on that question is saying that like if this culvert fails, this water is going to be diverted like onto the road or further down the inboard ditch. Is that how you would interpret it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last question is, does the inboard ditch discharge directly into the stream? Which is, I mean, that's bad. That's like having all the road erosion that's coming down that ditch just wash directly into the stream channel, and that's not what we want to happen. So, any questions on that? They're kind of long, but I guess it's important to look at all of them to see if they're doing their job correctly.
On the other side of this handout that I have, we have a camp out coming up in just over a week, and we're inviting people to come out and help us do some of this road truthing, and we'll have a base camp in the Clackamas. And we had one in May and one in July, and they both were great. A lot of people came out and helped us, and so far we've covered about 300 miles of road, and the goal is 400 miles for the summer. So if people want to help us, that's a great way to get involved. Otherwise, we have some other opportunities as well. I go out most weekends to do road truthing and try and bring a few people with me every time. So at this point, I think what we'll do, especially because it's a little chilly, is get going. So we are going to not use this trailhead just because it will actually add about a mile onto our hike. And if we just drive down a little back a ways, we can actually jump onto the trail, and we'll be able to get into the really good stuff, into the wilderness sooner.
Our riches are so thin these days, and they're easily lost, so paranoia sets in. We must have more and more and more to win the game. We
plus all the pinky stuff, that's all public land. The pinky stuff is not, this is actually the reservation, but the other one is BLM land, and then the green is all National Forest land. So this is all public land, taxpayer-owned land, and that's why it's really, Bark feels it's really important for us to be involved in the process, because our taxes are basically paying to manage this area. And you know, there was a time where this was used as a reserve for if the economy ever slumps, then they could come in and log these areas and kind of boost things and give some relief to taxpayers. But unfortunately, now what has happened is the government's gotten real used to making a little money off of public lands, and they log it all the time. And one of the things that Bark tries to make a really big point is that there are other priorities that are happening on national forests. Recreation obviously is one of them, as we've seen a lot today already. And another thing is 1/3 of all Oregonians get their water originating from Mount Hood. The Bull Run watershed, this is, serves water from a lot of Portland. You've got the Dalles watershed right here. This is for the Dalles. And there's a couple other takes in the area that are serving communities around the mountain. So Clackamas right down there. And so when we talk about logging and the potential of sedimentation going into those rivers, and what we were talking about with the roads crossing over the streams and also increasing sedimentation, we're not just talking about general streams, you know, just your average old streams. We're talking about streams that are going towards water sources that we depend on for drinking water. So we take this pretty seriously when they make timber sales and logging their #1 priority, because it's not the #1 priority of the public, and we know that. So we are going to jump into the forest. It'll feel like we're a little off trail for a little bit, but it'll just be a few minutes and we'll jump on to we'll be on the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail, which goes, where does it start, Baja?
I think so,
starts
yeah.
Baja and goes up to Canada. And so it's pretty exciting. I love when I'm on it, because I feel like I'm somehow connected to people all over the West Coast. When Katie and I were out here on Thursday, we actually ran into a guy who had been on, he was on his 25th day, and he'd started in Ashland, and he had made it up to here, and he was planning on hiking through the night in order to try and make it to the end, I guess, of Mount Hood. That was as far as he was going, then he was going to head back down, but it was pretty awesome.
I know. Hey, Dan, can you get a shot of these mountains?
We are going to hike down on the PCT now. This is the Pacific Crest Trail.
PCT,
and the
you
PCT. And we're and it'll start to switch back through the forest, and then when we get down to the river at the bottom, we'll stop for lunch. So hopefully everybody's, I know it's a little late, but hopefully
not a hater. I'm a lover, not a hater. Can't you see? Can't you see in my eyes? They're at peace. There's no war to be had. There's no war to be had from me. I'm a lover, not a hater.
I was just showing the different types of wood. You have the sapwood here, the initial outer layer, and this is harder than the heartwood here. And so one of the keys to the pileated woodpecker, why it's the primary excavator and plays such an important role in the forest around here, is it's strong enough to get through the sapwood here, to hollow out the heartwood, where it makes its dens, and then those are used by all sorts of rodents and other birds. But in order to create that initial habitat, which is used by everything, you need something strong enough to get through the sapwood here, and that's where the hard and long beak of the pileated woodpecker is so important.
Oh, I know, because when I've been out in the woods and they've pointed out the pileated woodpecker, it's big things.
Yeah,
and
it's a big hole.
And now I understand why more. It's because they're the ones that can
break
through the
So-
exterior.
Are all the marks on the interior there in the heartwood, are those maybe from the woodpecker?
No,
They
I
look
think those are
man-made, right?
no, those are ablaze. Yeah, this is marking the path.
Oh, I see. And so
But-
that may have even caused the death of this tree, actually. Maybe.
Maybe, maybe not.
knows?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but it is a great example of the different types of wood here. You can really see it.
Yeah.
It stands out.
Not a hater. Can't you see? Can't you see? In my eyes, they're at peace. There's no war to be had. There's no war to be had from me.
On the back side of the thing that we handed out, there's some information about these two upcoming things. There's also some information about the travel planning stuff in general and some of BARC's work around it. This picture is actually one of our volunteers wanted to do an art project, and I had a hard time thinking of what might be helpful, but then I realized that we didn't have a very solid map of all the roads in Mount Hood, so she actually took one of the maps that we have that was kind of hard to tell, like what all the roads were, and drew just the roads. So this is actually a map of all the roads in Mount Hood.
Wow, that is intense.
And then below, this is information about an upcoming camp out where for 10 days we're going to have people going out and doing that road tree thing that I was talking about earlier. And people can come and we'll feed you breakfast and train you on how to do it, and then go out in groups of 2 or 3 to the roads for the day. And then this is talking about public meetings that are coming up this week. The Forest Service has been holding these public meetings where they put up maps of their proposed solutions to the roads issues, and usually have a presentation that is kind of a lot of baloney, and then it's a good opportunity for the public to go and interface with some of the Forest Service people. It's also a good opportunity to comment on stuff that they're doing. Right now we're in a comment period for the next 50 days where they are accepting comment from the citizens about their travel planning work and about the roads issues. And at the moment, the Forest Service's plan is to make 6 OHV playgrounds, and that's going to be the scope of their travel management for the next 10 years, however long until they revise this again. They are not looking at any logging road issues. They do not want to look at any other recreation issues or use of the roads. They feel like coming up with these playgrounds is going to solve all the problems, and our response has just been that's not enough. Not to mention that these 6 playgrounds are basically going to be 55,000 acres of sacrifice zones. Nobody's going to want to go hiking there. Nobody's going to want to do anything there because there'll be OHVs and ATVs flying around on these trails and having a pretty huge impact on the area. So we're not even totally sure that that's a good response just to the OHV component. But we know that if you're really going to look at all the roads in Mount Hood and all the ways that we use those roads, it's got to be a bigger analysis, and it's a real missed opportunity to be just looking at OHVs. For the last 10 years, in several different documents, the Forest Service has admitted that about 50% of the roads are useless now and that they should be taken out. And they keep, every time we take them to task on that and say, okay, well then let's get some work done. Where can we get funding? Well, how can we do this? How can voters be helping to, get funding in order to get that work done? They just keep saying, oh, well, we'll do it soon, we'll do it soon. And right now, when we've met with the Forest Service, they've once again said, this travel management planning process is not where we're going to do the larger roads work we know we have to do. We're going to do it in 5 years or so. Or maybe in 5 years we'll get some funding, and then 5 years after that, we'll do it. And the fact is after last fall, we saw that this is a problem that's happening right now and needs immediate attention. Roads are going out, bridges are getting blown out, and the backlog of maintenance is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more intense. And it just, I think it's a pretty powerful moment. We have a lot of people who are really interested in this process and want to get involved and help, and so this is exactly the kind of opportunity they should be following through for once on what they've been saying for years. So,
Well, they already allocated the space to those 6?
yeah, they do have 6.
They've located them, and
Yeah, and what's very frustrating is there's only about, I think 3 of them actually have signs of use. They actually have use happening, illegal use happening into the forest right now, and so there's a sort of user trail system. One of them, however, they don't have any use yet. There's no OHVs in that area, and they're proposing 41 miles of new trails. They're crossing major creekways in one key watershed area, and then also crossing several trails, hiking trails. So they keep telling us they don't have funding, but not only are they planning these major timber sales where they're continuing to build new temporary roads, but then they come out with a solution where they're building 41 miles of new trails. Well, I don't remember the last time they added 41 miles of hiking trails to the trail system in Mount Hood.
or even kept up what they had.
Right, or even kept up what they had. So it's ridiculous when they say that kind of thing.
Well, don't call it trails. These are for vehicles. These
Right.
are roads.
Yeah.
41 miles of road.
Well, that one is it's for motorcycles. So it's not, yes, it's not a hiking trail, but it's not fully a road. But what's concerning to me is we don't have a commitment from them that they're going to culvert that trail. So potentially motorcycles would be going right through the streams in that area. So yeah, it's pretty, and one of the things is they keep saying, well, this is going to be more helpful for law enforcement in Mount Hood. If we have these little areas, then we'll cluster all the OHVs into these little areas. Does anybody know how many law enforcement officers there are on Mount Hood National Forest?
No, I have no idea.
4.
4.
Is
Well,
right.
that's-
4. And they're not on all the time. They take turns. So
One for each county.
not even, I mean, basically, there's 1 in Zigzag because there's a lot of action in Zigzag. There's 2 in Clackamas and 1 for the whole east side. And so, not that we want Mount Hood to be just crawling with police officers or anything, but the fact is that's totally unrealistic. The only solution is to get rid of the problem, which is these logging roads. The logging roads are the things that are leading the OHVers to be able to go deeper into the forest and making it so that they can hide out further and be making these user-created systems that we don't ever really find because they're pretty deep into the logging road areas. That's the only way to really curb this problem. It's not trying to, because one of the other things is the whole point of off-roading is to go off-road. So if they just make these trails, what's guaranteeing that they're going to stay on the trails? That's not the point of the recreation. The point is to go off of the trails. So it's a pretty strange solution. Bark is kind of new to this issue, so we don't really have a, other than what we think is a pretty big solution is taking out a lot of those logging roads. I don't know, I think that we need to have a larger dialogue of how recreation is going to be sustainable and accessible for everybody in this national forest, and that's not something that's happening right now. And that's what Bark is really trying to push: is getting people engaged. Where are the areas that are important to you? What are the ways that you use the national forest? Mountain bikers, we know, are not psyched on wilderness because they're not usually allowed in it, but there are plenty of great trail systems for mountain bikers. So where are those? We don't always know where those are. Where do kayakers put their kayaks in? Where do fishermen go and fish? And that kind of recreation dialogue needs to be happening, as well as where should OHVers be going, because the last time they did any surveys about recreation use, OHV use was about 0.1% of the recreation use of Mount Hood National Forest, and yet 55,000 acres of Mount Hood is about 4% of the national forest. So it's not right to be giving them that much area when they don't really make up that much of the use. Forest Service keeps saying, well, this industry's growing and future use, and that's just not okay. You don't plan. I think you look at what's the need is right now, and that's what you give them. If in the future they need more, then maybe give more. But I don't see this as a sustainable form of recreation for this important of a national forest when we have drinking water that's coming off of it. It's just not appropriate. So,
What's also unrealistic is just because they give them those areas doesn't mean that those folks are going to stop using the present illegal areas.
Right.
They're going to continue using those as well.
I think that's true. And I don't see how they're going to enforce that. And I feel certain that we can stop them. I think that if we can show enough support for stopping, especially ones like, I think the one you're just referring to is pretty deep into the forest, close to the reservation. It's in the upper Clackamas. There's not much use there right now. They don't go that deep into the forest. Most of the OHV use is just outside of Estacada in like Woodie Flat, and then there's some area down around like Road 45. And there's some areas that definitely have been claimed by that community, and I could see that becoming areas where they manage them, but you know, enabling them to go into these really wonderful wild places is just ludicrous. And if you're interested in getting involved in any of this, go ahead and email me. There's so many ways to be involved, and yeah, I'd love to have anybody's help.
1, 2.
kind of an interesting area. My read on this is that there probably was some flooding that went through here, and now it's kind of growing back from that, just from the change in like the soil and the different trees are coming up. But it's pretty interesting coming out of one type of forest and having it be so different. I believe the wilderness starts, actually that sign right up there is for the beginning of the wilderness.
I'm a true American. I stay quiet and collect my pay. I'm a true American. I stay quiet and collect my pay. I don't wanna rock the boat. I don't wanna rock the boat. I'm a true American. I don't ask any questions. I'm a true American. I stay quiet and collect my pay. I don't ask any questions. I don't wanna make any waves. I don't wanna rock the boat. I just wanna collect my pay. I'm a true American. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a true American. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't care where my money comes from. I don't care who gets burned. I don't believe in unions. I get mine, I don't care about yours. I'm a true American, and I believe in baseball days. I'm a true American, and this country's so great. And I'm too busy to change. I'm too busy to change. I'm a true American, and the earth has got to pay. I need a cedar deck in my backyard. I need to drive an SUV. I need 400 channels for comfort. I need the third world to bleed for me. I need plastic packaged poison food. I need a strong economy that's good. I need a gun that fires rapidly in case the UN comes looking for me. I'm a true American, and I need to believe. I'm a true American, and I need to believe, 'cause I'm afraid, 'cause I'm afraid, 'cause I'm afraid, 'cause I'm afraid. No one believes in me.
Freaky.
It looks like it has some green up there on the top.
All right,
Leftover.
who's gonna pose and actually be supporting that?
It's not dead yet.
Not completely dead, huh?
There we go.
That's a
Bark holds up the forest.
There we go.
Pretty good.
support bark. We support your woods.
That's great. Support bark. That's right.
Oh, that's perfect.
I know it. Support our efforts to protect the forest. Well, you can come up with all kinds of them for this one.
So one of the reasons why I picked this area is because not only does BARC advocating for taking out a lot of these roads, we're also advocating for maintaining the roads that people are using. This road is a very popular road for recreation, and at the moment we see a major problem. This whole bridge was blown out during a storm, and it's been out the entire summer. This is one of the most popular trails in Mount Hood, the trail into Ramona Falls. And we kept calling and asking when this bridge was going to be reopened, and they said all summer, they kept saying, oh, a couple weeks. And when Katie and I stopped in this week, they basically were like, oh, we don't even know anymore. So, I mean, they pretty much have their hands set. So one thing that BARC is trying to also point out is while they continue to build new roads and do a lot of timber sale planning with all of our tax dollars, they're not putting money into fixing roads like this that are really popular and people want to use to be able to get to these areas.
Oh, watching in the battery. Say what you want about me, yeah. But I'm a living in the green world, and I need the air to breathe. Some will say you gotta get your kicks by removing love from a natural chip. But metal